I'm a real estate agent, and part of my job involves holding open houses on weekends. Most of the time it's boring. You sit in an empty house for a few hours, hand out brochures, scroll through your phone, and maybe show a few people around. It's easy money, and I've done it hundreds of times without issue. But last fall, I had an open house that I will never forget. It was a Sunday afternoon in October. The house was a beautiful modern farmhouse on the outskirts of town, set back from the road with a long gravel driveway and thick woods on 3 sides. The owners had already moved out, so the house was completely empty. No furniture, no curtains, nothing. Just empty rooms and bare floors. I arrived around noon and set up my sign-in sheet and brochure stand in the kitchen. The open house was scheduled from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. For the first 2 hours, I had a steady stream of couples and families walking through, opening closets, commenting on the granite countertops. By 3 p.m., the crowd had died down. I was sitting in the empty living room, scrolling through my phone, when I heard a noise from upstairs. A creak, like someone stepping on a loose floorboard. I called out, "Anyone up there?" No answer. I figured it was just the house settling. I went back to my phone. A few minutes later, I heard it again. This time, it was louder, and it was followed by another sound. A soft, dragging sound, like someone pulling something across the floor. I stood up, feeling uneasy. The house was completely empty. There shouldn't be anything to drag. I walked to the bottom of the stairs and looked up. The second-floor hallway was dark, the afternoon sun not quite reaching that far. "Hello?" I called again. "The open house is almost over. If you have questions, I'm down here." Silence. Then a whisper, so faint I almost didn't hear it. "Help me." My blood turned to ice. It was a child's voice, small, scared, and coming from one of the bedrooms upstairs. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 as I slowly climbed the stairs. The hallway stretched out before me, doors on either side. The whispering came again, from the room at the very end. "Please, help me." I approached the door, my heart pounding. I pushed it open. The room was empty. Bare walls, bare floor, a closet with the door slightly ajar. The whispering had stopped. The 911 dispatcher answered, and I whispered, "I'm at an open house. I think there's a child trapped somewhere." I heard someone calling for help. She told me to get out of the house and wait for officers. But as I turned to leave, I saw something that made me stop. On the floor, in the dust, there were footprints. Small footprints like a child's, leading from the closet to the window. And then stopping. No footprints leading back. I ran. I ran down the stairs and out the front door so fast I nearly tripped. I stood in the driveway, shaking, waiting for the police. When they arrived, they searched the entire house. Attic, basement, every closet. Nothing. No child, no signs of forced entry, nothing. But one officer called me over to the backyard. There, pressed against the basement window, was a small handprint. Too small to be an adult's. It looked fresh, like someone had just touched the glass from the inside. The owners were contacted. They had no children. The house had been empty for 6 months, but the neighbors told police something interesting. The previous owners, the ones who lived there before the current owners bought it as an investment, had a daughter. She went missing from that house 10 years ago. She was never found. I still work in real estate, but I no longer host open houses alone, and I never ignore small noises in empty homes, because sometimes empty doesn't mean vacant. I've always been a dog person. My golden retriever, Cooper, has been with me for 8 years since he was a tiny puppy. He's the friendliest dog you'll ever meet. He's never growled at anyone, never even shown his teeth. That's why when Cooper started acting strange, I knew something was terribly wrong. I live in a small duplex on the edge of town. It's quiet, affordable, and the landlord allows pets. My neighbor on the other side is an elderly woman named Helen, who I barely ever see. We share a wall, but it's thick enough that I rarely hear anything from her side. Perfect for someone who values their privacy like I do. Last spring, my girlfriend went to visit her family for 2 weeks, so I had the place to myself. Just me and Cooper. The first week was fine. I worked from home, took Cooper for his walks, watched TV at night. Normal stuff. It started on a Tuesday night. I was in bed around 11 p.m., almost asleep, when Cooper started growling. I've never heard him growl before. Not once in 8 years. I sat up and looked at him. He was standing at my bedroom door, staring into the dark hallway, a low rumble coming from his chest. "Coop, what's wrong?" I whispered. He didn't look at me. He just kept staring down the hall, growling. I listened, but I didn't hear anything. After a few minutes, he stopped, walked to his bed, and lay down. I figured he heard an animal outside or something. I went back to sleep. The next night, same thing. Around 11:30 p.m., Cooper started growling. This time, he walked to my bedroom door and just stood there, staring into the darkness. I got up and turned on the hallway light. Nothing. Empty hallway, closed front door, everything normal. Cooper wouldn't come back to bed. He stayed at that door for hours, just watching. Thursday night, I decided to sleep on the couch with Cooper. Maybe he felt more comfortable in the living room. We settled in around 10 p.m., and I fell asleep with him curled up next to me. I woke up around 2 a.m. to Cooper barking, not growling, barking, loud, frantic barking at the front door. I sat up, my heart racing, and looked at the door. The chain lock was dangling. It was unhooked. I never used that chain. I always used the deadbolt. But the chain was hanging there, loose, like someone had undone it from the inside. Cooper was going crazy, barking and scratching at the door. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. I whispered to the dispatcher that someone might have tried to break in. She told me to stay where I was and that police were on the way. While I was on the phone, Cooper suddenly stopped barking. He backed away from the door, his tail between his legs, and hid behind the couch. I've never seen him scared of anything. Then I heard it. A soft knocking coming from the wall. The wall shared with Helen's side. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Then silence. Then 3 more. I didn't move. I just stared at that wall, holding my phone, listening to the dispatcher's voice in my ear. The knocking continued for what felt like forever. Slow, steady, never changing. The police arrived 10 minutes later. They checked my door, my windows, everything. No signs of forced entry. They went next door to check on Helen. They found her dead. Heart attack, they said. Natural causes. But here's the thing. Her bedroom was on the other side of that wall. The wall where I heard the knocking. And when they found her, she was lying in bed, facing the wall. Her hand was extended toward it. Her fingers were bloody and broken from pounding on that wall for hours, days, trying to get someone to hear her. I moved out the next week. I couldn't stay in that place, knowing that for 3 days while I lived my life, watched TV, slept peacefully, my neighbor was dying alone on the other side of that wall. And on that last night, when Cooper started growling when the knocking started, she was still alive, still trying, still hoping someone would hear. I think about her sometimes, about how she must have felt, alone in the dark, pounding on that wall, knowing I was right there. And I wonder if she could hear me too. If she could hear my TV, my laughter, my life, while she slipped away. Cooper still growls at walls sometimes, and every time he does, I listen, because now I know that sometimes the scariest sound isn't an intruder or a monster. It's the sound of someone who needs help, right on the other side, slowly realizing no one is coming. I've always been a skeptic when it comes to the supernatural. Ghost stories, urban legends, creepypastas, I never bought into any of it. I always believed there was a logical explanation for everything. But after what happened to me 3 years ago, I don't know what to believe anymore. All I know is that I will never, ever stay in that house alone again. And neither will anyone in my family. I was 22 years old, fresh out of college and living at home temporarily while I looked for a job. My parents had decided to take a 2-week trip to Europe, a dream vacation they had been saving up for years. They asked if I would be okay staying in the house by myself, and I laughed at the question. Of course I would be fine. It was my childhood home. I knew every creak, every shadow, every sound that house could make. The house itself was a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio. Nothing special. We had lived there since I was 5 years old, and nothing even remotely strange had ever happened. No creepy history, no old murders, nothing. It was just a normal house on a normal street. My parents left on a Tuesday morning. I waved goodbye from the driveway, already looking forward to 2 weeks of peace and quiet. The first few days were exactly what I expected. I slept in, ordered takeout, played video games, and enjoyed having the entire house to myself. It was on Friday night that things started to get weird. I was in the living room watching a movie around midnight when I heard a faint scratching sound coming from the wall. It was soft at first, easy to dismiss as mice or maybe a branch rubbing against the siding, but then it got louder, more insistent. It sounded like fingernails dragging slowly across drywall. I muted the TV and listened. The scratching stopped. I waited a full minute, then shrugged it off and turned the volume back up. Probably just a squirrel in the attic, I told myself. The house was old enough to have pests. I finished the movie and went to bed around 1:30 a.m. I fell asleep quickly, exhausted from staying up late the night before. I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. My eyes snapped open in the darkness. I lay perfectly still, staring at the doorway. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of pale light from the hallway spilling into my room. I always closed my door before I went to sleep. Always. It was a habit I had since I was a kid. I told myself the wind must have blown it open. But there were no windows open in the house, and the air was still. I got up, my heart beating fast, and walked to the door. I peered out into the hallway. Empty. The bathroom door was open, the guest room door was closed, and the stairs leading down to the living room were dark. Everything looked normal. I closed my bedroom door, made sure it was shut tight, and got back into bed. I lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, before I finally drifted off again. The next morning, I convinced myself I must have left the door open myself and just forgot. It was the only logical explanation. I spent Saturday like any other day, and by evening, I had pushed the incident out of my mind. Saturday night, I decided to watch a movie in my parents' bedroom. Their room had a big TV and a comfortable king-size bed. I settled in around 11 p.m., and about an hour into the movie, I heard it again. The scratching. But this time, it wasn't in the walls. It was coming from inside the closet. I froze, my eyes fixed on the closet door. It was a standard sliding door, one of those cheap ones with the mirrored panels. The scratching was unmistakable now. Something was inside that closet, dragging its nails against the inside of the door. I wanted to run. Every instinct told me to get out of that room, out of that house, and never look back. But I was frozen, paralyzed with a fear I had never felt before in my life. Then, the scratching stopped. And the closet door slid open, not all the way, just a few inches. A dark crack, revealing nothing but blackness inside. I don't know how I found the strength to move, but I did. I jumped off the bed, ran out of the room, and slammed the door behind me. I ran downstairs, turned on every single light in the house, and sat on the couch with a kitchen knife in my hand, staring at the stairs, waiting for something to come down. Nothing happened. The house was silent for the rest of the night. By morning, I had convinced myself that I must have imagined it. Maybe I had fallen asleep and had a nightmare. Maybe the stress of being alone was getting to me. I called my mom and talked to her for an hour, and just hearing her voice made me feel better. I decided I was being ridiculous. It was just an old house. Just my imagination. I went to bed that night in my own room, leaving the hallway light on and my door slightly open. I fell asleep surprisingly fast. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but the house was pitch black. The hallway light was off. I sat up in bed, my heart already racing, and that's when I saw it. A figure was standing in my doorway, just a silhouette, darker than the darkness around it, human-shaped, standing perfectly still facing my bed. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move, I couldn't even scream. I just stared at it, praying it wasn't real, praying it would go away. It didn't move for a long, long time. Neither did I. We just stared at each other in the darkness. Then it spoke. A soft, raspy whisper that didn't sound human. "You shouldn't have opened the closet," I screamed. I don't remember doing it, but I must have. Because the next thing I knew, I was on the floor on the other side of my bed, scrambling for my phone. I dialed 911 with shaking hands, babbling about an intruder, about someone in my house. When the police arrived, they found me hiding in the bathroom with the door locked. They searched the entire house, attic, basement, every closet, every room. Nothing. No one. But they did find something in my parents' bedroom closet. The sliding door was wide open, and on the floor, written in what looked like dust or ash, was a single word: watching. The police couldn't explain it. They took photos, filed a report, and suggested I stay somewhere else for the night. I went to a friend's house and never went back. My parents came home early, and they sold the house within 3 months. The new owners? They moved out after only a week. I heard through a neighbor that they claimed the house was haunted, that something would open their closet doors at night and just stand there, watching. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but I do know that something was in that house with me, something that had been there for a long, long time. And it knew exactly how to make me open that door.